I wanted to give a shout out to a store I recently discovered, Unusual Horror. They have a lot of cool shirts and merchandise for different horror movies and bands. That's actually where I got the August Underground shirt that I'm wearing in this video. I am no way affiliated with the store, and they are not sponsoring this video. I just discovered their store, and I wanted to buy a shirt for the video. So I just wanted to give them a shout out because the quality of this shirt is very nice and it looks good, as you can see in the picture. So yeah, check them out. I will post a link to their store in the description below. Hello everyone, welcome back to Carnage Reviews. My name is Eric. You know what you need in your life? I'll tell you, you need a little snuff. All bad jokes aside, today I look at the ultra-controversial, ultra-violent, ultra-disturbing, lots of ultras here, August Underground Trilogy. Now, this video is going to be a little different than my other videos. Not only because I'm reviewing 3 films in one video, but also, I'm not going to be giving these films any skull ratings. Not because I think they're bad films, but I think these films were made not to enjoy. More on that later. Now you may be thinking, well Eric, you gave ratings to the Human Centipede movies, and they are pretty messed up. You're correct there, but I feel that the August Underground films are at a different level than those movies are. Even though I won't be rating these films, I will tell you which ones I think are most effective in the series. And just a quick reminder to please consider subscribing to the channel. Just click that subscribe button, along with the bell icon, to be notified when I upload new content. For those unfamiliar, the August Underground films are a trilogy of low-budget horror films that are essentially simulated snuff films. The first film in the series, titled August Underground, was created by Fred Vogel and Alan Peters. The second film, Mortem, was directed by Fred Vogel and several other people. The third and final film, Penance, was directed by Fred Vogel. Originally, Vogel wanted to make a zombie movie. Fearing his inexperience would make it difficult to find funding, he made August Underground as a way to get his name out there. Having a background in special effects, he was able to use those skills in the film. Mortem was a result of Fred Vogel and his new production company Totak Pictures filming footage for Killjoy and his horror-themed band Necrophagia. Killjoy was actually the one to suggest making a sequel to August Underground. Thus, Mortem was born. The final film in the series, Penance, was released in 2007. It was written by Fred Vogel and Christy Willis and was directed by Fred Vogel. Just a warning here, given the subject matter, these films are extremely graphic and contain subject matter that may make some people uncomfortable. Due to that, I will not be showing a lot of footage from these films. Anything I do show will be minimum or will be censored. Also, there will be spoilers.
Open your eyes and look at your brother!
The first film in the series, August Underground, focuses on 2 friends. The film opens with someone dumping out a beer who we never see on camera. He's greeted by his friend Peter, played by Vogel, who takes him down into his basement, where he has a girl tied up and gagged. Her boyfriend is also down there too, but he's already dead. And he's missing a very important appendage. Without warning, we're just thrown right into the carnage right away. Given that this is a found footage movie, it's shot in a very amateur-like way. In fact, when they edited the movie, they purposely degraded the footage even further to add to the overall realism, and I gotta say, this is very effective. The film intercuts between them doing mundane and everyday activities, between them killing and torturing people. For the young people out there, I'm going to explain something, and since most cameras now record on a memory card. Back in the day, in fact, when I first started getting into video production and filmmaking, we would use what was called a mini DV tape. It was about the size of a cassette, and if you don't know what a cassette is, I'm not going to explain that because my channel is not about the history of technology, it's a horror channel. But anyways, it was like a little mini tape. You popped it in the camera, and then you hit record, and then anything you recorded would go onto that tape. And if you wanted to view what you recorded, you'd have to rewind the tape in order to see it. And depending on where you are in the tape, if you hit record, it may record over footage that you already shot. To explain it further, have you ever been shown old home movies and how it's just like a random series of events and it'll just randomly cut out at times? That's what August Underground is like. The way in which the movie intercuts between different footage is very realistic and effective. For example, there's a scene where Peter's driving, and it's the daytime, and he's talking, and mid sentence he gets cut off, and suddenly it's nighttime.
Now, Arnold City, that's where she lives. Well,
A lot of people criticize this movie for being cheap and amateurish, but I mean, that's kind of the point. It's supposed to be that way. I am by no means an expert on special effects, makeup, or whatever, but I gotta say, I think the effects look really realistic here. In fact, the fact that they degraded the footage adds to the realism of it and probably hid any limitations they had due to the budget. In fact, it's not even the gore that makes the film disturbing, at least to me. It's the two main characters, just the utter cruelty they display, and just how it's an everyday casual thing. One scene that really stood out to me is when they pick up a hitchhiker. For 20 bucks, they convince the girl to show her breasts and other parts to them. Peter then tells the girl that he will give her the money once she performs oral sex on him. Peter then attacks the girl, all while his friend is laughing and filming the whole thing. The unnamed cameraman friend then films the girl's body. He then runs back to his friend Peter, proclaiming that she's still breathing. The camera then abruptly cuts to a shot of dog shit. Does this symbolize how Peter and his friends see the world and human life? As shit? At times, the movie can be a bit mundane and boring, but I think that's the point, because home movies are mundane and boring. And that's exactly what we're watching. We're watching the home movies of two psychos. We see them do a lot of different things, like go to a metal concert, which actually was really impressive because it seemed to be the whole thing was shot guerrilla style. In fact, I wonder if anybody actually knew they were filming a movie there. We also see them go to different landmarks and places. We see Peter get a tattoo. Peter and his friend become friendly with the two owners of the shop, who happen to be twin brothers. We then abruptly cut from them talking to them in the basement. One of the brothers is dead, and the other one is gagged and tied up, and Peter and his friend torture him. Like real home movies, the movie just abruptly ends. Is August Underground a good movie? That's a tough question to answer. Is the movie effective? Damn right it is. The opening scene alone is disturbing, and the acting is very effective. What bothered me the most about that scene is the way they just pick and prod at the girl like she's a piece of meat. They clearly have no value for human life. Serial killers, sociopaths, psychopaths, that's how they are. They don't care about anybody else but themselves. They're not intelligent or charming like Dexter or Hannibal Lecter. We live in a world where serial killers are immortalized. I mean, look at movies like Friday the 13th or Halloween. Why do we watch those movies? We watch them to see Jason or Michael kill attractive people in many different ways. In August Underground and the movies that followed, we're shown the reality of being unhinged, of being a serial killer, in a very animalistic and unattractive way, as opposed to the popular slasher movies where we look forward to the kills. In August Underground, we're meant not to look forward to the kills. One more thing to note before I move on to the next movie. The unnamed cameraman, Peter's friend, has the most insufferable, annoying laugh. I mean, I imagine this was done by design to make it more unlikable, but man, just the fact that he sits there watching Peter do all these horrible things like dismember a body part or torture a woman, and he just sits there and laughs like a giddy schoolgirl. It just makes you feel so dirty. August Underground's Mortem was released in 2003 and has five, yes, five directors. Fred Vogel originally had no intention of making a sequel to August Underground. As previously mentioned, Killjoy, the lead singer from the band Necrophagia, encouraged Fred and the rest of the Toe Tag team to use the footage they were making for him and his band and use that for the basis for a sequel to August Underground. Thus, Mortem was born. Like the original film, Mortem is structured in a very similar way. It's purposely shot in a very amateur like way, the footage is degraded, and it's a series of random violent events peppered in with everyday activities like going to a concert or eating at a fast food restaurant. Mortem affected me quite a bit. I mean, holy shit. I had heard how crazy this movie was for years. Usually, when people talk about movies like this, And then when you finally see it, you're either really let down or it's just really lame. But I have to say, people are not exaggerating when they talk about Mortem. Mortem makes August Underground look like a Disney film. I mean, fucking A, man. This film is just filled with sexual assault, self mutilation, necrophilia, vomiting. I don't usually get bothered very easily. I mean, I feel like I've seen it all. But for some reason, Mortem really got to me. And it wasn't even while watching the movie itself, it was after. I just couldn't get it out of my mind. Mortem follows Peter, played by Vogel, who I assume is the same character from August Underground, I'm not quite sure, his girlfriend Krusty, and her brother Maggot. And Krusty and Maggot are involved in a sexual relationship with each other, even though they're sister and brother, so, great. In fact, the movie opens up with Peter finding them having sex, so, Mortem is clearly a movie for the entire family. As I stated earlier, the film is structured very similar to the first film. We see them do mundane activities peppered in with some violence. However, I feel like we don't see them do a lot of mundane things as we did in the first film, and the stuff that they do in this film is way sicker, and Mortem definitely pushes the envelope as far as depravity goes. There are two scenes in Mortem that really got to me. The first one is with Krusty and her brother Maggot. They take this woman out of a casket they're keeping her in. She's tied up and masked, and Maggot proceeds to rape her while Krusty cheers him on and taunts the woman. So, again, just the absolute cruelty and just not giving a shit about human life at all here. To Krusty and Maggot, the woman is simply a toy for their amusement. So after they're done assaulting her, they go to another casket where they're keeping her boyfriend, who is also tied up and masked, and Maggot makes him cut off his own, well, let's say his Twinkie. So he cuts off his Twinkie, and then Krusty takes it and she puts it in her mouth. Yes, she puts it in her mouth, and then she proceeds to assault the woman with it. Ugh. The way in which this scene is shot, with the grainy footage and the way the actors act, makes it super effective and realistic. And damn, the effects used in this scene look real. I mean, holy fuck, I'm not kidding. They look real. Second scene is with Krusty assaulting and vomiting, yes, vomiting, on two terrified women as a corpse rots in the corner. Peter and Maggot are watching, and as Peter watches, he's, well, pleasuring himself. Now, I'm not going to lie here. During this scene, I had to look down quite a bit. For some reason, I don't know what it is. I can handle any depravity or gore on screen in a movie, but when it comes to vomiting, it just really bothers me and makes me sick. And the documentary S&M Man, which Fred Vogel is in and he's interviewed for, which I highly recommend checking out that movie because it's a pretty good movie. But anyways, in the interview, he talks about how in Mortem, the scene where Krusty's throwing up on the women, she's really throwing up on the women there. And man, that just makes me sick to my stomach just thinking about. I have to give credit to Fred Vogel, Christy Willis, who played Krusty, and Michael Todd Schneider, who played Maggot. All of them are extremely realistic and believable in their roles, especially Maggot. Fucking A, man. This guy is one sick fuck. I mean, you see him eat the innards of a woman, and then he gets a little freaky deaky with them. Not only that, but he also takes maggots from the corpse of a baby and eats them. I mean, fucking A, man. I can't believe I'm saying this stuff. I can't really recommend this movie to anyone. I hate it. But I guess in a sense that's the point. So I guess that means, therefore, I love it? I really don't know. I feel like there is a point to Mortem. Like August Underground, Mortem is showing us the evil in the world. It's showing us how there are people out there that do this shit every day, like it's a casual, everyday thing. And no matter how old you are, who you are, what race you are, if they want to hurt you, they're going to hurt you. And they're going to do it for their own amusement. Not gonna lie, after watching Mortem, I felt like I needed a break. So I took a couple days before I watched the final film in the trilogy, August Underground's Penance. Perhaps I'm just desensitized, but this film is a lot easier to sit through. Don't get me wrong, there's some very disturbing moments here, and it's just as violent and depraved as the other films are. But I don't know, there's just something different about this one. Like the other films in the series, it's shot in the same way, that home movie style. So there's a mixture of violence mixed in with everyday mundane activities. However, this time they used an HD camera, so the images are much cleaner and crisper. However, There is graininess in the image, so it still has that home movie quality to it. I would say that Penance is similar in style to the first film. It focuses on two characters, Peter, played by Fred Vogel, and his girlfriend, Krusty, played by Christy Willis. No Mac at this time. I assume that these are the same characters from Mortem, but I'm not sure. The film follows them around as a couple, who both happen to enjoy inflicting pain on others. We follow them around as they wander around, bug a homeless person, and enjoy fireworks. On the surface, they both seem happy, but underneath, they are both slowly starting to crack. You know, I gotta say, the film does a really good job showing their slow descent into madness, and I must admit, it feels good seeing them be happy and treat each other well. They treat each other so much better than they did in Mortem, though sadly, that does not last. Although I feel this film isn't as violent or as chaotic as Mortem was, the effects here are very impressive, especially when it comes to Peter dismembering bodies. So there's a scene in the movie where they break into a family's home around the holidays, and it's very disturbing. So they break into this family's home, they kill the entire family. Peter goes upstairs to take a shower. Krusty stays downstairs in the living room by the Christmas tree, opening up presents. And eventually she falls asleep with the dead bodies. And when I'm watching this scene, all I can think of is Henry Push Up a Serial Killer. That scene in the movie where the home invasion scene where they break in and they're videotaping the entire thing, and then you come to learn that you're actually watching them watch the video of them breaking into the home. And this makes me think of that. In fact, the entire series of August Underground really has those Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer vibes. In fact, you could call August Underground the Henry of found footage films, and I mean that as a compliment. There's also a scene in the movie where Peter kills a pregnant woman, and he guts her and takes out the unborn baby. And this ends up being too much for Krusty, who snaps and goes into a crying fit. The effects in this scene look crazy, by the way. So Krusty's crying uncontrollably, distraught by what's happening, and Peter, confused, he decides to rape her. To me, this symbolizes that Peter is so far gone that he doesn't understand basic human emotion. He doesn't know how to comfort anyone, he only knows how to cause pain. He's done it for so long, that's all he knows. Without knowing a lot about the Krusty character and her background, I would say that in the past, she has suffered a great deal of trauma. And I think maybe she's realizing that all these heinous acts they've committed have real consequences, and that doing these acts are not going to make her own pain go away. I think Peter led her into this lifestyle. Peter himself is just a straight up sociopath. I'm not saying that Krusty is innocent, far from it, in fact. What I am saying is that I think she's a misguided soul. The film ends with Krusty telling a sleeping Peter how much she hates him. She spits on him, goes to one of his captures, kills her, and then begs for forgiveness. She says how much she's sorry and how she just wants out. She goes to the bathroom and kills herself. The camera lingers for a moment as we hear footsteps. I'm guessing the footsteps of Peter. Eventually, the film just ends. I think this film is a lot more focused than August Underground and Mortem. I think by this time, Fred Vogel understood the formula and he knew what type of film he wanted to make, and he was able to do a nice balance here. Although Mortem is a lot more shocking, I think, Penance is the strongest of the films. So, the August Underground Trilogy, these are hard movies to review because while I feel like they are effective and they did achieve what they wanted to do, can I really recommend these movies to anyone? These movies are ugly, dark, and will make you feel dirty. I mean, they are exploitation films after all, so that's the point of them. However, they're a different type of exploitation movie. Let's look at a movie like Frankenhooker, for example. That's an exploitation movie, but that movie's funny. There's humor in it. It's fun to watch. I don't mean this in a bad way, but the August Underground films, they're not fun to watch. And that's the point, though. They're simulated snuff films. They're the home movies of serial killers. They're not meant to be entertaining. They're meant to disturb, and that's what they do. I consider these films an endurance test rather than something I would watch to be entertained. That's the point, though. These people are monsters. They're not meant to be admired or put on a pedestal. They get off on hurting innocent people. We see the world through their eyes, at least what they allow us to see. As I mentioned previously, out of all three films in this series, Penance is definitely the strongest one. It's just a much more focused film, and I really enjoyed seeing the character progression. It also has some very good special effects. A close second, just from a shock value standpoint, would be Mortem. I respect the first film for the lengths that Fred Vogel went to make the film look authentic. When you hear Fred speak in interviews, you can tell he's a really passionate guy and loves horror. To me, the horror genre has always been about emotion. It can make you feel hate, disgust, anger, It can make you feel sick. It can make you feel violated. It can even make you feel happy and laugh. Horror is a much more broad genre than people realize. If you love these movies and are a fan of them, that's great. That means that Fred Vogel and his team made you feel something. If you saw these movies and hated them, if it made you feel sick, made you feel offended, just made you angry, that's also okay because that means that Fred Vogel and his team made you feel something. If you absolutely hate these movies, hate Toe Tag Pictures, hate Fred Vogel, think he's a hack and can't make movies, which isn't true by the way, think he's mentally disturbed, that's also okay because you know why? In the end, these movies, Fred Vogel's movies, made you feel something, and that is exactly what horror is supposed to do. Thanks for checking out today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please tap that like button, and if you have not done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Until next time, guys, bye-bye.